Can all of our Zoom attendants hear us?
Now I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, he's muted himself and he's turned off his video.
Tom, are you going to run this meeting, or do you want me to?
Oh, the vice chairman, if you're not going to, either you or the vice chairman will.
You can run it.
You can run it
from
still.
there.
Yep, we've done it before in the past. For what? I don't know, at least a year. So, all right, it being a little bit after 9 o'clock, I'll bring the Facilities and Property Management Committee to order. Agenda item number 1, approval of minutes of the October 26, 2022 Facility and Property Management Committee.
I'll make the motion, we accept the minutes.
I'll second the motion.
All right, a motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Moving on, agenda item number 2, correspondence shared by committee members.
I have something, Mr. Chairman, and I know Mike knows about it already. I went to the Morgan House
Okay,
and they have another light, I guess they found there, 1 or 2, I think maybe 2. When they've already done that, used to be in the courthouse years ago in the chambers of the county board. And they'd like to give it back sometime, but I know with everything going on, I know Mike's just had a problem, but they do have 2 that they would like to donate and get it back into the courthouse. The guy that showed it to me, he used to work for Mike, I do believe. And he did the other one cleaning it all up and that, I guess. And so it's a nice job. There's no rust or whatever, and they've really done a nice job. And I just think it's probably someday I'll even have them come and talk to the county board just on all of that, because that, if you ever get a chance to go there, that's quite a museum if you haven't been there. I never had been there. I never even knew there was such a thing.
what's it called?
It's a Morgan House.
It's the Oshkosh Historical Society, and they are in the Morgan House. Okay. I believe that's the founder of Morgan Door.
Right.
Morgan? I don't know.
One of the brothers.
My grandfather,
It's quite a place just to go into, but anyways, I guess why I'm bringing it up is because there are lights there that did come out of the courthouse and out of the actual ones that used to be in the boardroom that hopefully we don't forget about, and like I said, I know that.
Well, I know we talked to Austin several months ago, and he was supposed to drop them off.
Oh, well, there's one hanging there that's all done, and
Okay.
so I said that, I'd bring it up. I said, I'm on facilities, I'll bring it up also, and I said, I'm sure that Mike knows about it, but I said, there's a lot of moving parts right now as far as in there, but just so we don't forget about them.
How old is that?
Well, was there
The Morgan House?
Well, the light.
Well, the light is probably 1938.
the ones that were in there?
Wow,
The ones that-
1938,
So it's not LED.
No, it's not LED, although they got, I think, LED bulbs in them now.
Oh, do they really?
The ones we reclaimed, we got a similar one for hanging in the stairwell. It was one of the courthouse ones, and we've modified that to put LEDs in.
Yeah.
And we got another one in the space between branch 3 and 4 on the second floor that we, it's similar to the one that was there, but it's not the actual one, that we upgraded to LEDs. So even some of the chandeliers in the courtrooms, that are original, I think, maybe not. We've upgraded to LED.
Most good. So this is actually older than 1938, then it would be 30 years, 1900 even.
I don't know how old that is.
I don't know.
It was originally built in the original.
Oh, the courthouse was built in 1938.
Oh, this one. Okay, so this was hanging in this courthouse.
This court.
Okay.
Right, in the board chambers, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
If you ever get a chance, you should just go visit.
Yeah, I'm going to.
I was called to look at the lights and that, and so.
You have to make an appointment.
They've got certain hours, but appointment I think is good because they're not open all the time.
Where is it?
It's kitty corner from the courthouse kind of, isn't it?
Yeah, it's,
down
I
past
think,
that church there.
yeah, it's on Church Street, I think it's more so across from the police department. It's like this on the corner of one of the streets.
It's got a big sign out front,
Yeah.
if you know what you're looking for.
And the difference is on Union Avenue, so that makes sense why they know each other.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, anybody else? Any more correspondence? I do have something, Mike. Can you give us an update on the green light project? Did you take those down now, or are you gonna take them down, or is that just the month of November, I guess?
It was, the original plan was just the month of November, so today's the 30th. We would be turning them off, tomorrow. And then we'll probably take them off the buildings and store them for future use.
Okay, yeah, I thought that was pretty neat. So hopefully that's something we do next year. Moving on to public input on agenda items. Anybody from the public wishing to speak? Nobody's in the room, right?
Just you and Mike Norton on,
Okay. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak? Anybody from the public wishing to speak? All right. Moving on to discussion of building assessment study. Mike?
we got 11 proposals from 11 firms. And the prices range from a low of about $180,000 to a high of $407,000. So I know we have $300,000 in the budget. And right now I am reading through the proposals to make sure that they all have all the answers to the questions that we had in the proposals. And I'm about halfway through right now. And then I will be discussing what I have found with the county executive to see how he wants to proceed on selecting a final consultant.
Were more of them above or below 300 or?
They are right around, the majority of them are right around 300. We had 3 of them below 200,000. But some of them lower did not have all of the stuff that we wanted. They didn't provide a cost for, we added in an addendum, we added in the cost for looking at UW Fox Valley. The reason those weren't included in the original study is because Outagamie County didn't budget for the study, so they can't, unless the county would want to pay for the whole study for those. The agreement would be Outagamie County would pay for half the study. They are interested in paying for half of it next year. So
Half of the project.
half of the cost of analyzing UW Fox.
Oh,
Fox
okay.
Valley. And then there was some questions that were brought up about what would happen if the study shows that we should consolidate functions in a building or get rid of a building. What would we do with the building? If that's what it, if the study came back and said, let's say Oshkosh Human Services is going to be way too costly for us to upgrade and modernize and do all the deferred maintenance. Maybe it would just be better to build a new human services building, maybe centrally located in the county. What would we do with the one on Washington Avenue? So not everybody answered those costs for those services, but those were 2 services that were added as an alternate that we would get a price from them. And if it was something that we wanted to go ahead with, we would not have to go through the RFP process again. So the original company that came through and proposed doing this for us is McKinstry, and they came in just under $300,000. So that's where we got the original budget amount for it. And that's where I am right now with the project.
You said this go back to the county executive. We won't see it anymore once he makes the decision.
That's an area where there is some discussions on what the role of the county board and the county executive are that I can't answer for you right now.
We just passed that new rule, so. You know, that would define it, wouldn't it?
I would think so,
I think so.
but
I think it does. I think it addresses that.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Well, whether we would have input on a decision like that.
Haven't we already? Or is
that's
it-
the
oh, it's just
question
been put into the
Mike asked.
budget? Okay.
Yeah, I have to provide, I gotta provide my findings of what I found with the RFPs to the county executive. And then I will ask them how we proceed with that and how we would make the final determination.
Because then we'll have an exact dollar amount and the board would be interested in.
Right,
But I would think as a committee, I'm not telling you how to do it, but as a committee, looks much better if it's coming from the committee saying they approve this, even,
yeah,
you know, the county executive could say, this is the way I'd like to see it. But then it should come back here and then have this committee go ahead and approve it.
right. Part of the selection process, maybe we might want to bring in the 3 people that appear to be the best qualified to do a presentation. And then that would be a presentation of 45 minutes or so, questions and answers. Who would be present at the presentation? I will defer to the county executive.
That's a good idea. Would you do that at the board level or at the committee level?
I think we would do that probably at the committee level.
It wouldn't be 45 minutes that county board.
No.
So, and
Yeah.
Sleeping bag.
I have to ask more questions of the county exec on how we want to go. A lot of times, what I've found in the past is when we do the presentations, sometimes people are not very good presenters, but they are very skilled at what they do.
Yes, that's a fact.
True.
You
And
gotta keep that in mind.
some people are very skilled at being salesmen, and they are not always the best performers. So it's we haven't really done a lot of presentations in the past simply because that's what I've experienced, and I've gotten burned on a major project where somebody was a very good salesman and they did a poor job of what they were contracted to do.
Out of these 11, have you got any kind of idea on any of them? I mean, do you know of any of the companies?
I do not know of any of the companies. The only thing I do know is I did have some early interaction with McKinstry, and they seem to be, they're a national company. They seem to be skilled in what they can do. Part of the RFP process we found out is there's a company in California that does this too. So it's an interesting read so far.
You said McKinstry was just 300 about.
It actually, it's public knowledge. They were $297,300. There's another company, it's called Bureau Veritas. They're a big firm that does a lot of inspections and certifications for building systems and everything. But they're from out of town, and some of their costs are travel and lodging and feeding their people here. So some people are saying their reimbursements, which would be like incidentals like travel, or if they have to make copies or things like that, are not included. Some of them say they are. So it's trying to come forward and look at what everybody's proposing to be able to tell the county executive, this is what I think the real cost is. Because like they'll say, well, here I've got one, the price is $284,000. Oh, but we're estimating that it might be up to $10,000 in reimbursements. That's not in the base price, because we'll only charge you for what we spend. Not that we'll put $10,000 in there, and if we don't spend it, it's just additional profit. So it's a little, I've got I've got apples to apples, but now it's like, which is a Honeycrisp, which is a Macintosh, and which one is the best value that we can get for the price. But what we're really looking at is more so who is the best qualified to do what we're looking at, rather than the cheapest.
Couple things, Mike. Can you walk us through I guess, the process and Supervisor Robinson brought up, and maybe you can elaborate on, I guess, I mean, can the county executive just say, we're going with so-and-so and that's the end of it? I guess yeah, that's my first question.
My understanding is the county board sets the policy and the county executive executes it. So selecting the consultant and doing the project would be considered execution. The county board set the policy of they want to do an assessment of all the buildings. They've given the county executive a pot of money to use. And then that's where some thoughts are saying that the responsibility of the county board is done with that. It's now handed off to the administration. So I will be discussing more so of this with the county executive to see how he wants to go with that.
Got it. I guess I'm just going to be a strong advocate for that presentation, however you decide, or 3 or 5 coming back through this committee. I think, we're the elected officials that have been chosen to be, the experts per se on this. And so I guess I would be a strong advocate of at least having the presentations come back through this committee. And yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, Mike, that what happens a lot of times is, people put a lot of money into marketing and they bring in all the bells and whistles, but they're not actually going to do all the work that they said that they were going to do. So I couldn't agree more with you on that aspect. But yeah, I guess that, one person picking a winner or loser, I think it'd be more transparent having it come back through this committee and at least having a discussion about it. But that's my opinion.
If I could just jump in a sec, Andy, I would agree with you on that. I think if nothing else, we provide some input, or, it's more pairs of eyes looking at these guys, and then whether or not they take our advice is another matter, but at least we have the opportunity to give it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Mike, I guess, is there any company, local or at least in the state of Wisconsin, that does this work? And then, I'm typically in favor of trying to use local folks more than not. I just think that, when we can put that money back into our state or our county, it's beneficial for everybody. It's these additional benefits. So anybody from the state of Wisconsin or locally that would do this building study.
There is at least one company. I haven't looked at what their locations are really, because I've been looking at what their qualifications are, and whether they've got all the parts covered. But there is at least one company I recognize as being a company that has a presence in Wisconsin. A lot of these companies are really big, so it's like they may have an office in Madison, but they're headquartered out of Chicago. So I don't know how you classify that, if it's a local state company or if that's considered an out-of-state company.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't think most of the work is going to be done, computer work, probably very little, I shouldn't say little work, but, boots on the ground, taking a look at stuff, and a lot of it is going to be putting together the data. So just curious on that. That's
okay.
That's all I have. Anybody else have anything on this building assessment study?
I have one thing. How much did the county board approve at the budget for this?
300,000.
If I thought 300,000, so by rights, we gave the right to the county executive to do that, but if it goes 301, it has to come back to the board.
That's true.
Because he does the daily thing. I agree with all you guys. I think it should come back here at least, before it goes to the board, but, but I agree. There's no reason why the committee couldn't at least hear dock or whatever.
Because don't you think also we could have like a Zoom if they could not come in here? You know, and have it that way also, or would you want them to come here?
When we did our pre-submittal meeting, probably 2/3 of the people that were interested in doing it attended via Zoom. So, you know, over the last 3 years, Zoom has become quite a tool, that, you know, I don't think that would be a big problem
No,
to,
I don't
to
either.
do Zoom. And it would actually save money for everybody.
I agree. All right, anybody else? Okay, moving on to item number 5, discussion of Oshkosh Human Services elevator repairs. Mike?
This has been a thorn in our side now for about 3 months. We have 2 elevators at Oshkosh Human Services. One is the one that is used most frequently by the public. It's an Otis elevator. It's currently under maintenance contract by Quinay Elevator. We go out for elevator maintenance service, and we pick an elevator company to do the maintenance. And there are 3 big companies, nationwide companies that do elevator maintenance: Otis, Quinay, and Schindler. And they will do work on everybody else's elevators to do it. And what we've ended up having was, in fall, the elevator was not acting properly. It wasn't landing at the landings correctly, and the doors weren't operating right. And it was tracked down to a processor that had a problem. And we have since sent the processor out 3 times for repair. And we just got it back the 3rd time last week, Friday. And they put it in, and the elevator still is not functioning properly. So what that means is that I'm going to have to come forward with a project to upgrade the controls on at least one of those elevators, which is
Otis elevator.
Yeah, it's an Otis elevator. We reached out to Otis, and Otis's response was, well, since you don't do your maintenance with us, we don't work on that. So they were of very little help with it. Schindler Elevator got involved with us and tried to call in some favors, and it didn't really help. And like I said, there's the 3 big companies. I believe like Otis has bought out Northwestern, Quinay bought out Montgomery Elevator, Schindler has bought out some of the smaller ones. You know, and the market is getting smaller on who we can get to maintain these. And one of the things that, you know, a sidelight is when people talk about people not going into the trades, elevator mechanics is a trade. You know, and I know when I was in high school, nobody ever came to talk to us about becoming an elevator mechanic. So they're having the labor issues just like everybody else is. But what it comes down to is those controls are about 40 years old. So they have not given us any problems until this fall. There was no really indication that we were having any problems with the elevators. So now we have to come up with a project to go out for bid to put in some new elevator controls. And what we would do is go out and get a bid for some non-proprietary controls, which means that anybody can work on them. The way it is right now in the industry, if you buy an Otis elevator or a Schindler elevator, they will allow people to work on them to a point. But a lot of times it's just like if you have a GM product, you know, a Ford mechanic can work on it, but if he needs the computer to go in there and take a look at some of the codes, they hold that close to them. What we would do is install they call it a non-proprietary system, so that it's basically anybody can work on it. And the cost for that is, in the project for one of them would probably be like about $150,000. So we've got proposals from 2 elevator consultants that can inspect our systems, come up with a plan on what kind of controls we need to install, and write the bid package for us, and then put it out for bid and help us monitor the people that put it in. Once it would go out for bid, Kone, Schindler, Otis, we had a local company that took care of elevators. They could bid on doing it, but they pulled out of the Fox Valley, which is why we've got Kone. But then we would be able to do that. Unfortunately, the time frame to get the controls is what I'm concerned about. When they're I'm so tired of talking to you guys about the supply chain, but it is incredibly long right now trying to get stuff. So, you know, I'm saying we could be looking at 6 months to a year before we get the controls to upgrade the elevator. But we won't know that really until we get more involved with the elevator consultant. Maybe with it being non-proprietary, we can get them faster, because they use more off-the-shelf stuff instead of specialized electronics. But the goal is right now is that I will contract with one of these consultants and get the replacement project at least under design, and get an estimate that then I can come to the county board for a budget transfer to do the work.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
Mike-
yes, go ahead, Jim.
I was watching the Appleton Holiday Parade. And there are 2 companies that move elevators that had floats going in that parade. And that's strange for Appleton that they'd have 2 different elevator companies, but I didn't know if you knew that there were 2 of them up there in Appleton.
Well, yeah, there's Otis Elevators in the Appleton area. Schindler is in the Appleton area. Kone has an office. Their technician, I believe, is in the Oshkosh area, but their office is down in Milwaukee.
Okay,
And even Schindler has, they're nationwide. I think their big office is in Milwaukee, but they've got a small office up here.
good, okay.
So,
That's-
um,
It just surprised me that there's 2 of them. And like I say, I can't believe that there's that much.
oh, if you take a look at, we take a look at the state bid for elevator services, and the state of Wisconsin has got like a ton of elevators at UWO,
Sure.
and at Green Bay. So, you know, to be between 2 big markets, you know, the Appleton area is a good place to have an office for an elevator company. Not to mention all the apartment buildings, nursing homes, and everything else
Mhm.
that have elevators. I think you'd be surprised at how many elevators are in the 100 miles around Oshkosh.
Why don't we have Otis doing our elevators? I'm just curious.
They were more expensive than Kone.
A lot. The reason I say would be further ahead, if we would have kept that Otis now and
No, I think we would have been at the same place. Because it's electronics, and Otis still gets the components from other people. So, and Kone gets them from the same people. So they said they sent the processor back to the manufacturer. So, you know, I'm going to take them at their word that they gave us the same level of service that Otis would have. And it's time to do it. When I was talking to Schindler, they're saying that they're recommending people replace elevator controls every 15 years.
so when's the other one? How long's that one been?
Oh, that one is an antique.
Yeah, it is, and I've ridden on it. I'll guarantee.
Should be like looking at the other one right away.
But I mean, you know,
I know you're going to one at a
But
time.
it works.
I'm gonna ask the county executive. So, you know, if we do both of them, we're probably looking at, you know, probably a $400,000 job. You know, it might be to our advantage to do that. Although it's older controls, maybe not going so modern might be in our favor. I don't know. But you know, this, you know, when Schindler told me the 15-year thing, it's like, well, so that means in 13 years now, we've got to spend another $1 million for the courthouse. You know, we're gonna have to spend $400,000 on Oshkosh Human Services. Neenah Human Services elevator is more than 15 years old, so that's probably $150,000 there. We've got an elevator at Highways or in King. You know, we're gonna be talking about spending hundreds of thousands of dollars every couple of years to replace elevator controls. At you know, if we phase it out to do that. You know, we got 40 years out of these controls. I don't know. We've got 4 elevators at Parkview. We got an elevator at the CBRF. You know, if we have to start doing a phased replacement based on a 15-year time frame, it's going to be expensive for the county to keep doing that. And I would probably say, you know, let's operate it until we start seeing that we have problems. But we got burned on Oshkosh Human Services.
So, so there is no specifically lifespan of these elevators. They could break down in a year or 2 years. Like you said, this one lasted for 40 years.
Yes.
So why would we do it every 15 years?
Because when we upgrade to the new electronics, the new
Oh, I see.
electronics become obsolete. The software that works on the electronics becomes obsolete. I've got a Windows 3.1. No, I have a Windows 98 computer in my basement that now has broken, and it's like,
Well, you can't get anything.
you can't do anything with it. So it's going to be the same thing with as we modernize all of our equipment and we get into more electronics and away from more mechanical stuff, it's going to become maybe more efficient, but it's going to have to be upgraded on a regular basis.
So how long does this newer equipment last?
Schindler is saying we should plan on 15 years.
So hopefully the building assessment study will address that.
Well, we will be looking at the elevators. Hopefully working with, we'll work with this elevator consultant, and then we may have them come on board and give us a cost for looking at all of our elevators and coming up with a plan to see what options that we have. You know, it's just like, you know, back in 2000, we had a card access system that they just put I'll call it a time bomb in there, and they just said, you need to upgrade or your system won't work anymore. And all of a sudden our system didn't work. And then we had to upgrade it. So, you know, as you get more and more electronics and more software based, you're ending up having to upgrade and modernize the stuff more often than you had to. You know, look at the controls that we had for the courthouse elevator. They lasted from 1938. You know, almost 100 years. And, you know, now they're electronics. They're more susceptible to dirty power or a power surge, power spike. So, you know, you ask how long will it last? It can last until we have one good lightning strike nearby.
The motherboard goes out.
The
And it
motherboard,
takes
yeah.
out the motherboard.
So it does wipe out the motherboard, and then that's,
And
and then how long does it take to get a motherboard? That's another question.
it can take,
If ever.
it can take months.
Yeah.
You know, we waited over a year for some motherboards for the card readers, not big motherboards, but we waited a year for motherboards for some of our card readers.
Oh my
We had everything except the card that had the chip. And that's that's where we get to, how many vehicles do the manufacturers have waiting for chips? And to be truthful, companies like Microsoft or, the chip companies, they want to grow, they want to stay in business, so they have to keep upgrading the stuff. And it gets into a chain where they're no longer going to support something, and you're out of record. How often do you have to replace a cell phone? They want you to replace your cell phone every 2 years.
We never had them.
And growing up, I had a rotary phone that worked just fine.
It sure did.
So
Something to be said for analog
yeah,
and without planned obsolescence.
I think you're on the right track by going away from Otis and getting a somewhat generic unit. It can be
we did that
necessary.
with the courthouse elevators. Those are ones that they're called Smart Rise, and anybody can buy any of the parts, and the software is open source software, so anybody can work on the software. Because in my time working on buildings, so in the last 40 years, Northwestern's gone away, Montgomery Elevator's gone away, Keckheiser, which is the old one in the Oshkosh Human Services that you wrote, has gone away. There's just a consolidation in the market, and people buy the intellectual rights, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to keep the old manufacturer's technology.
They're in it to sell elevators.
What's that?
They're in it to sell
Right,
elevators.
they're in it to sell elevators,
the
they're in
parts
it
that
to
you
sell the software.
Yeah. No, I think you're on the right track there.
So that's where we stand with the Oshkosh Human Services elevator. And we are asking Kone if there is anything possible that we can do to get that elevator operational, at least in the short term, while we can get this bid package to go out.
Yeah.
And actually, it was Kone that, they gave us a proposal to upgrade the controls, and they did not even specify their controls. They said, do a Smart Rise. We'll put in a Smart Rise. It's non-proprietary, anybody can work on it. So.
It's good.
All right, anybody else? I think that's good with the building assessment study. Hopefully that's included in there with taking a look at these elevators, and yeah, naturally that, like I said, cell phone companies they're trying to sell you something. So I think that hopefully the building assessment will give us an accurate, look into where these sit. And then, yeah, we're dealing with the Rockefellers of the elevator industry right now. He's exactly right there. These companies are multinational conglomerates, and there's only a few of them, and they're very proprietary with everything they have, including their apprenticeship standards. And it's just the world we live in. So moving on to number 7, director report on department operations. Mike?
At the 980 housing
How about-
report.
6.
Oh, 6, sorry about that. 980 housing.
I'll make that one quick. We go before the city plan commission next week on the 6th, I think it is, at 4 p.m. And we've got support behind city staff, and I don't think we will have an issue with the plan commission. And then it will go 2 weeks later, I think, before the city council, and they will have, I don't believe they will have any issues with that either. And as soon as we get the approval of those 2 bodies, we are ready to go out for bid. And we will be able to go out and we'll start, we'll get the costs, we'll get the contractors, and we'll start putting it up. I know I've got another meeting next week for one of the individuals who is looking at coming out. And we're trying to find a place for that individual. And hopefully we will find one.
Are we responsible for that?
Finding, yeah, that's what the whole problem is that the state has made the counties responsible to find a place for these people to live within 120
Oh, yeah.
days.
Yeah, we are definitely responsible.
And my response to the judge and everything that we have a place for him, he just needs to wait 6 months and it will be a brand new home. Was not looked upon favorably.
Oh,
We have to find a physical location for them to move into in 120 days.
Right, or you get fined $100,000 a day.
Isn't that
No.
that first person?
1,000.
ready to get out of the
$1,000.
trailer?
1,100.
There have been some discussions with him. And he was under some, I don't want to say, it was not clear on what his rights were. It was clarified for him, so I believe he is looking at petitioning to move out. And according to the sheriff's department, he has been a model resident. They have had no problems with him at all.
They hate to lose them, but
Yeah, we hate to lose him, but it's like, hey, time to leave the nest.
right, we need,
Apparently he has a job and he's doing what he needs to do.
that would open that up then.
That would open that up, yeah, yeah. So that is what we're hoping will happen. If not, the judge does have the ability to just outright release these people without supervision. So, but we are trying to move as fast as we can. Like I said, we've got the meeting with the plan commission next week. Speaking with with the city manager and the staff, they had no problems with it. They actually came up with some suggestions for us on how to make it
More palatable.
more palatable. So hopefully everybody will follow through with that and we'll be able to go out for bid, and as soon as the frost is out of the ground, we'll be putting down concrete and putting up a house that we can go with it. I've got to confirm with the county exec. I don't know that I don't know how many of them that we're actually going to go ahead right away and build, just because we don't want to have a ton of stuff there that we got to pay for and maintain if we don't have people to go in there. And I know we're not looking at, well, I should say, my understanding right now is we're not looking at being a landlord for other counties and bringing them here.
Sheriff doesn't want to do that.
No, so it's not like we want to build all that we can and then rent them out. We want to make sure that we have what we need and then go from there.
Gotta back you up a second. You said the judge has the right to just release these people.
Yep.
Can that judge, if you say that one, the first one that's in that trailer, say he's all a model citizen, all this, can that judge release that one and say, because we're going to need that next spot for this other one?
I believe the process is the individual has to petition for release. Then it goes back to the judge and the judge can say, looking at your record, yeah, you can go.
So in other words, the judge can't just release somebody.
No,
Okay, I thought that's what I understood you
No.
saying, okay.
no, it's when they come out of Sandridge. He has if he has a couple options. He can agree with us where we want to put the person. He can say that the person's not ready to come out, or the person is ready to come out and, in my opinion, based on everything, he can just go right out into the public. But once they're in the supervision, they have to apply to be released from the supervision. And I think the first person we got in the trailer is probably a good candidate to be released.
Right.
All right. Anybody else? Moving on then to director report on department operations.
Y'all were gracious enough to grant me a project to replace the chillers at the Neenah Human Services Building. It's out for bid right now. And we have gotten some responses back, and the supply chain, what we were hoping to beat by getting it done by summer. Two of the HVAC contractors are saying that's not gonna happen. One of them has said the delivery is 50 to 80 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, when going back to the elevators, I can want that done in a month as much as I want, but if the controls and everything will be in the production schedule whenever we get in there. And I do know when we added on the absorption chiller to the jail, there is nobody in the country that builds an absorption chiller. Because it was done with a federal grant, and part of it was you had to buy American, and we had to go for a waiver because nobody built absorption chillers in the country. And it's kind of the same way with some of the chillers for air conditioning. They're not necessarily built in the country. So we have to get them where we can. We are looking at using either Crane or Carrier, or there's a Japanese company called Daikon that build good chillers. So, you know, we looked at talking about this. We talked about the 980 already, the building assessment. We talked about some of these other projects. You know, we're trying to nibble away at them as we can. They're smaller projects. The county historical marker, I met with Randy Dormer. We had a location all picked up. They didn't necessarily like that position. They liked one across the street better. So we were all set. We got the permits for it and everything. And they said, well, can we move it closer to Highway Y? And I'm looking at that, and it's, you know, you're closer to Highway Y, so there's people coming around the corner. I don't want people parking on Butler Avenue because it's gonna cause congestion. So I want to look at it a little bit more, talk to the county executive. I don't know, do you guys have a preference of where it goes along there? The original goal was to put it where the Brown Barn was, and it's not where the Brown Barn was. So, I don't know, we do have a bunch of easements along Butler Avenue that we have to kind of work around.
Wasn't there a bunch of parking right there by where the old barn was?
Yeah, there is parking there, yeah.
Couldn't you put a sign out on Y saying this way to the historical marker?
I was going to be working with Bob Damel on what we have to do to get a historical marker sign out there. I don't know. So, you know, this came up about a week and a half ago that they wanted to relocate it. So we're trying to figure out what we want to do.
The guy we started with isn't there no more, correct?
No, Steve Cummings retired from that. So we've got the marker, it's in our hands now. Like I said, we had it all marked out. We had Digger's Heart line and the permit and everything all done. We almost had it framed, ready to go, and they changed their mind. So
Then what was their purpose in changing their mind?
because it was closer to where the original entrance was to the county farm or something down at that point. I don't know. You know, it's a historical thing. I like history, but I'm not that enamored by it. You know, I think the whole county park, Parkview, Coughlin parcel, even where the county park is, or where the fairgrounds are right now, was all part of the county grounds at one time. So, you know, realistically, it could be anywhere.
Yeah.
I would kind of like to keep it down where the Brown Barn was, because that's where the county farm was, and that's where the whole process started. But
What's it say on there, the county farm or
it,
county barn?
Actually, I haven't read it. I can probably talk to, Paul Rothing and see where it is. You know, after the meeting, you guys can probably go take a look at it to see. It's probably back in our carpenter shop, what it says. But I believe it addresses all of the nursing home, the asylum, the county farm, the whole history of what that parcel was. And personally, I would think I'd want to put it right where the center of it was to kind of address everything in total.
Plus, that's a nice setting right there with the trees, and I mean, it's all.
Well, it's further up the road. It's still surrounded by trees.
Yeah.
I still say put it over at Sunnyview. That's where the asylum and all that was, and that's where and that's where the most people are gonna see it.
Yeah,
How many-
and that's where the cemetery is.
Right.
Um,
Oh, that makes a lot of sense, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, if they were gonna want people to see it,
yeah. So, you know, I will take that suggestion and discuss it with the county executive to see how we want to address it administratively. My recommendation is, it all started with that brown barn.
Yeah.
We should keep it where the brown barn was. I'm okay with moving it across the street because you're not looking at the parks stockpiles of materials and everything. It's a better view, but you know, I kind of like it back where we actually had it. And it's like I said, if we move it up the 150 feet up wide or up Butler, then, you know, people have to park in the front of Coughlin and walk all the way over there, or most people are just gonna pull to the side of Butler Avenue and want to be looking at it. And then conversely, if people say, well, not that many people are gonna be stopping to look at it, well then, let's put it where it's the most convenient for us.
or do the people that remember, those that have their mind and everything, they would know where it is, put it by park. I mean.
And actually-
Red.
You know, and actually, I'm working with our ground supervisor there is a bunch of overgrown sidewalk along Butler Avenue. We're gonna be working at uncovering it all, because there are a number of people from Parkview that will go along Butler Avenue in their motorized wheelchairs that have the ability to go out on their own. They'll I don't know if they actually get into the county park or not, but if we can get the sidewalk there and then we have something for them to look at, it's not that far away from Parkview. So my recommendation to you guys and the county executive would be, we put it on the west side of Butler Avenue where we had picked it out. We uncover the sidewalks. Maybe we can put a sidewalk approach to it, but we start getting into easement issues. But to me, a sidewalk is kind of temporary. We can go out there with a forklift and pick it up and get it out of the way if somebody wants it. But I think it would be beneficial for the Parkview residents too.
Right.
Not just so much the public.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you guys are in agreement with that, we can't take a vote, but you know, that's what my plan would be, to put it down there. I'll talk to the county executive and then I will let Randy know that, no, we feel that it's a more appropriate place down here. Because it's something for the Parkview residents to take a look at.
I would support it.
Yeah, I would park.
Parking at.
Do we need to have it on the agenda for next meeting?
Yeah, let's get it in there for our next meeting, hopefully.
I'm hoping,
Ground's gonna freeze if you don't get it in there.
yeah,
You're not gonna get it in.
Yeah.
You're in.
I don't know if we're gonna be able to get it in. You know, we had to delay the site selection because Randy was out of town. And then we had it all picked, and like I said, we jumped right on it to get it going. And, you know, now we got backed up and I'm looking at other things rather than where we're going to put it.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Because the ground's not frozen, so.
yeah, and even if it is froze, you know, we can throw some coals on it or something
Okay,
and at least get it.
we spent a lot of time on this, because this was back when I was.
I've
first-
spent too much time on this,
Yeah, which was years
you
ago.
know.
Yeah, we are spending too much time on it. My own feeling,
Yeah.
Jeremy, we're spending too much time on this.
I think it should be put and done with.
Yeah, this is where the commission wants it.
Yeah. Um. We've got our branch 5 benches back out for bid. We had a walkthrough with that last week, so we'll see if anybody will do that.
That's the wood refinishing.
Yeah, yeah, it's been downsized from doing all of his woodwork to just his benches. They are in pretty bad shape. We've got the USDA lease. I've sent that off to the last revision, sent that off to the USDA for approval. I have not heard back from them yet.
Do they have to make a decision or be out by the 31st?
It'll just go month to month. We've basically been month to month the last year. Well, no, December 31st, the lease would be up, but we've been month to month with them several times in the last 20 years.
So we don't have to do something with the next.
No,
No, no. I think, I'm pretty sure that they're in agreement with it, but I don't want to go and start doing any of the remodeling. Because if they don't sign the lease, we won't make the money back. And
Yeah,
it would be remodeled not the way that we want it.
yeah, until they sign that lease.
The jail cell window glass replacement has all been completed now. So that one's all done. We are getting the materials in to remodel some of the bigger offices into smaller offices up in Dina. We talked about the chiller replacement. The DA offices are all done. We've just got a little bit of touch up on the some of the painting. The storage facility is pretty much all done. We have to put in a couple of ground fault, outlets in the garages to get the final sign off on the electrical, and that should be all done. Shelter care. You all passed the money to get it. I have not talked to Mr. Topol to see if we have a signed agreement with them. But I know he's working on that.
He's ready. I think there's some questions on whether it's going to be signed, so.
Okay. So I'm working on what we gotta do to fix the sprinklers and the roof. We're looking at putting in the lift. So, we're doing that. The boathouse repairs is another pain in my butt. We have got some, I put a stop to it because there was some question about how we're going to dispose of the soils because we took some information that we had to the landfill and they said, well, you need some soil samples before we can accept it. And I know Radke's has bid to just dump it on a farm field, but if our landfill won't take just dirt because there's stuff in it, it can't go on a landfill, on a farmer's field. So we've got that scheduled for, they're gonna come in this week or next week to take the soil samples.
Phase 2 audit? It's a phase 2, right?
We should have done a phase 2, but we didn't. So, what we've got is some information from Wisconsin Public Service that has the monitoring wells there. Solid Waste saw some chemicals that were questionable. So we have to do some soil samples. They're scheduled to get the samples next week, and then we'll get them analyzed. We'll be able to turn over the results to Solid Waste, and they'll be able to tell us where it needs to go. And depending on how we have to handle it, will determine on if we have enough money for the project or not.
What was there that could cause contamination?
There was a Wisconsin Electric transformer site. So I don't know, they had stuff, they didn't say PCBs, but there was other kinds of heavy metals and solvents and stuff there. And then there was a paint factory, I think, that was on the other side of the property. So
How many yards are we talking about?
Radke says 350 yards. I don't understand why it has to be 350 yards. And I don't know why we can't just store it right on the site and use it as backfill. But I'm not as well versed as Tom Radke is on soil conditions. And he says it's not suitable to use as backfill.
Is that why the ads to Radke's is delayed due to cost of ads recommended by Radke?
Yeah. Yeah, Radke's is saying, well, you know, we have to put in more pilings. And then they said we need to do more riprap. We've negotiated them back to, and they said, well, you know, we can probably not do the riprap. And there was some sheet piling that they wanted to put in around some monitoring wells. And we said, you know, why are you even talking about, you're not going back that far. Well, in case, so they're getting rid of the sheet piling, and they said, we don't really need to do the riprap, but you should do the riprap. And we're down to like about $3,000 that I left the contingency in there for $10,000 for soil disposal. If the samples come back that it can just go to the landfill, then we can make up all the costs that we've got left and we'll be within budget. I do know that the sheriff and the county executive do not want to come back to you for more money.
Well, I'm just wondering, a part of it is Radke's too, because they've screwed up other projects through the road. Why they had a problem with, they had another problem with by Larson. They didn't get a simple little project done. Now they pulled out, they haven't even done it, so the county had to go in and finish a part of it. And, you know, so I think next time Radke's go out, and we have a good reason not to go ahead and get them if we want to, don't want to get them. I really have a time with Radke's right now, and I respected them for a long time.
It's another one of those, like, when we did the presentation, I said, there's only a few companies that do this kind of work. We had two firms interested, and one of them said that they were gonna get their bid in late, so they didn't submit a bid, and it left us with wreck. As a public entity, the state law says you have to go with the lowest responsible bidder. The state law does not say you have to get 3 bids.
You tried.
So, you know, they say you have to go out for competitive pricing, and if only one person provides you a price, it technically complies with the requirement to go out for competitive pricing, but you're really not getting, you know, you don't know where on the bid spectrum you're actually following. Is the person at the high end or at the low end?
Sure.
If that fill comes back clean,
Mhm.
could he use that as backfill, or is he just saying from a compression?
He's saying from a compression standard that,
It's not suitable.
to quote Tom Radke's, it's potting soil. It won't do anything.
The makeup of the soil is not suitable.
Right, but it's. Once again, I'm not the expert. I don't do this kind of work. The bank's not falling in.
Yeah,
So I know you disturb it and you basically aerate the soil,
Leaches in.
you know, and it will probably leach in, but I don't know. I'm not the expert. I have to rely on people that have decades more experience than I do.
But to go back on you as far as having the low bid or whatever, you do not have to take the low bidder if there's been a problem with that person.
Correct. Correct.
And I think the county has had enough problems now that.
Yes. Yes, I know I've been talking to Andy about a process to help us with that. I have to discuss it more in depth with the county executive.
Tom, how long have you been on this committee for? Since 16 or how many, right? A number of years?
Yes.
Yes, I've been on since 18. And Supervisor Wise has been on, a couple different times. And we've continued to hear this narrative from Mike that there's these contractors that cause problems, and there is a solution to this, and we need to work through this. So it's not, I go back to the roof thing, and Mike, maybe this is even Mike's analogy that, you get 3 quotes on a roof and one guy's $100,000 lower than, the next guy, and you're going to have some question marks on that. So there is a solution to this. I believe anyways, there's other counties that have worked through this as well. And I hope, we're on our way here, because it's much like that historical marker sign. We've been talking about this Groundhog Day stuff since 2018. The contractor caused us problems. This one, I mean, it's the same thing. And so we've got to move forward here towards a solution. And I believe there is one. So that's too bad to hear about Radke and what they're doing. But yeah, anyways, sorry. I just couldn't hold it anymore. It's just the same Groundhog Day here.
I agree with you. I came from the private sector, and it's so much easier in the private sector. Unfortunately, public works are looked upon differently, and it's wrong. Unfortunately, though, in the course of our country's history, public works has been used for the wrong reason. And there's been a lot of graft and corruption associated with public works jobs. That's why we have these handcuffs. If you go back and look at Cook County, Illinois, back in the 30s, they did all sorts of public works jobs that was, awarded to cronies of the elected officials at the time. And all of these rules get put on us so that it minimizes graft and corruption, but it definitely hamstrings us in trying to get the best value of a product or a service for the taxpayers. And the country has way too many lawyers that will make excuses for poor performers and keep them in the bidding pool. So that's as far as I'm gonna go. We're working on our LEDs. Outagamie County's got the cell tower contract with, or at least with UW Fox Valley. They're finishing up the last changes that they took the lead on it for me. And they're actually got like 3 times the amount of rent that I managed to get with them. They had more comparables to be able to go out and beat them up with it. So that's good. The child care center addition is just about done. We're just going through the punch list now and finishing up some stuff. We had the storm rated louvers were supposed to come in, I think last week. So I don't have an update on whether those got through there yet or not. The student center, we had an RFP that they worked on to do the design work. And I got it like 2 days before it was supposed to go out. And I had some comments, and my counterpart in Outagamie County did not even have a chance to look at it. So it got slowed down with my comments, and then Paul made his comments up there. So it's back in the hands of UWO to take a look at it. And then hopefully I'll get it. Today's Wednesday already. Maybe I'll get it by the end of this week, and we can take a look at it again and make sure that the changes that Paul and I have recommended are in there.
Is that the engineering study for the
lunchroom, the common area. It's for the design work.
Yeah.
And they had some things in there that we can't do. because it would have violated some competitive pricing. So. And just some things that they needed to incorporate that would make the project a little bit more manageable. The science wing windows, I don't know where they stand on that. But I do know in talking with the architect that we brought on board, or they brought on board, to take a look at the windows, the windows are a problem throughout the entire facility. So that's gonna be a big one. The fume hoods, I know they were going to get another test done on that, but it came out that there's some more components that are not working. So once they get those components working, it's both Paul Farrell's opinion and mine that just some minor tweaking on the fume hoods should be all that we need to do to get the airflow and everything that they need.
We save a bunch of money doing that, right?
Yeah. And that's pretty much it with my projects. The budget, we're looking okay right now. Labor wise, it's gonna be our big thing to turn back. The money for the positions that we haven't been able to fill. We do, in talking with my office staff, we do get 1 or 2 people a month, I think, coming in off the street, looking for the jobs with the signs that we've got out there. We're non-discriminatory. We will tell them any and all positions for the county and encourage them to take applications for any of the jobs. We are still short the facility superintendent and 5 of our custodial staff people. I do have an HVAC technician that's going to be retiring at the beginning of the year, and I have our master plumber who's going to be retiring at the beginning of February. And I do believe that is going to be 2 positions that are difficult for us to hire. Our master plumber has actually been being headhunted by plumbing contractors to come and work for them. But he is retiring. So I don't know how quick we're going to be able to fill that. And a number of years ago, probably maybe 15 to 20 years ago, I did get my hand slapped by the state plumbing inspector that we are doing plumbing work that requires a master plumber. I don't know if I've explained to you guys what the requirements are. We can take a cartridge out of a faucet and replace it. That's considered a repair. I can't go to Menards and buy a replacement faucet and put an exact replacement faucet on the sink. That's a master plumber.
Just to do that.
Just to
Let's
do that.
do that.
I can take out a P-trap and patch it with liquid metal. I can't go to Menards and buy a replacement P-trap and put in a new P-trap.
Here's what it is.
So
That's
We're not
crazy.
gonna like that, though. Yeah,
that is
I know.
why we have a
I mean,
master
actually
plumber
do
on
that.
board to do those kind of things. So hopefully we will be able to attract a plumber who finds this kind of work enjoyable and is happy not to get called out at night or on weekends, unless it's a really big emergency, which for our plumber has been, knock on wood, very infrequent. And the same with the HVAC tech. We have a much more enjoyable work environment than being a contractor. So hopefully we'll get some people that will apply. I do know we had somebody that was interested in it, and you know, the hourly wage is lower than what he would like. But he works for the HVAC union, and I know my sister-in-law used to work for the plumbers union, and talking to some of the HVAC guys, I think the trades unions, and maybe Andy could clarify it for me, is that, you know, part of your income goes into a fund that would pay for your vacation and pay for your health care. Whereas like we pay 50% of your retirement, we pay, between 85 and 90% of your healthcare costs, which if you take a look at what their hourly wage is compared to what it costs the county to have them here, it is a significant difference. And if somebody knows that they're getting 6.5% of their income added to them in the form of a retirement, you know, that, you know, if you're like 2 hours below what you wanted to do for take home, well, 6.5% of your income going into a retirement is more than that $2 per hour. So we are giving that information to the individual. Maybe he'll reconsider and say, you know, yeah, we'll come to work for you. He's somebody that we've had work on our buildings from a contractor's point of view. So it's like we enjoy having him here. But we'll see if we can entice them. And we've got the compensation study going too. So I know I've got a meeting with the consultant, and I'm just going to tell them, you know, we're battling not just out of Gamey County. I'm battling, you know, August Winters and Gartman for HVAC techs. I'm battling, you know, the plumbing contractors for plumbers. You know, we've got to be able to compete with that.
Mike, I guess a couple things. We had talked about as far as, you know, being short on labor. When I was in school, I went to school my senior year. I went to school half the day, and then the other half of the day I worked at the Oshkosh Area School District, working with the plumber, the maintenance guy, the electrician, whoever needed help that day. And it's kind of changed, I believe. I think now it's maybe called a youth apprenticeship program, but I believe those are still out there. And I guess I would like to go on the record of just that we should be exploring this and go into the high schools and saying, hey, is there a guy or gal that would be interested in, you know, working for us, you know, half the day, and then that transfers into the summer and that kind of stuff like that. I think it's, you know, it's very beneficial for both entities to get different experience. And I have a hard time believing that there wouldn't be a kid out there that wouldn't like the experience of working with your different departments and being exposed to that kind of stuff. I think it could be very beneficial. So I would be happy to work with you on that, Mike, and talk with the different folks and the schools to, you know, that could be, you know, an option. So that's
Right. I'm trying to explore that with Mark Habit.
yeah. And I did get you that invitation to the Oshkosh Chamber of Commerce is having a career fair, and hopefully the county participates in that in February. And then as far as the your technicians and whatnot, I think that you know, in the trade, everything's on total package, and that means your health insurance and your retirement and that kind of stuff. So as long as we're, you know, competitive, I think folks in the trades understand that maybe coming to work at the county, yes, it is going to be a better pace. And, you know, understanding, I have never heard that you go work for a municipality and make the same as you would, you know, working in the private sector. But as long as those rates are competitive, Mike, and I'll get you those rates for the sheet metal and the plumbers. So to make sure that we're right in line. I just can't believe that if we have to always hire a contractor on to do the plumbing and HVAC, that's going to save the taxpayers any money. So, but we shouldn't be, you know, paying extremely low to these folks either. So I think we should make sure that we are, you know, looking at a big picture of that, understanding that where craftspeople are right now, hard to find, but the big picture of saving the taxpayer money by doing this stuff in-house. So I'll get you that information as well, Mike.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I know what you mentioned on the schools and going ahead and working part-time, they get credit for that along besides, you know, whatever they get paid here or whatever, they can get credits for graduation, towards graduation.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, Amro schools, Winnebago, whatever, I mean, that work, you know, in our area, like I said, I mean, it was, I don't know if the schools do that anymore or not, but they should. I mean, you know, they definitely should.
Don't we have to, excuse me, don't we have to get a sign off from the judiciary on this? For bringing somebody who is.
It would be a whole different process that we have to go through. And then, and that's why I'm trying to work with HR, because you all approve. And this is where things are changing over, like when I started with the county 24 years ago to where we are right now is who can do what with what. Right now, the way it is, I'm authorized to have 39 people in my department. I don't know how having a youth apprentice works for that. If that would be considered, I have to ask for a new position, then that goes before the county board. The funding for it and everything would have to go before the county board. And that would, I would think that as a department, it would have to start with the committee of jurisdiction. I'd have to get the buy-off of the county executive first, then it would go with the county of jurisdiction, committee of jurisdiction, then it would go to P&F and then the county board. And I think, you know, it's a great idea. You know, I tried working with some of the trade unions to see about setting up an apprenticeship program with us. And I was not very successful with it because we're non-union. The trade unions are union, so they're trying to encourage union jobs. So it's not, and that's where, you know, if Andy can help me with this like youth apprenticeship program where we can grow our own apprenticeship program, you know, that would be great. If we could have somebody that would work junior and senior year in high school and get some skills, and then when they graduate, come to work for us full time, that would be great. If we had the opening. If we didn't have the opening, then it would be a way for them to get a job someplace else. But it's a process that we have to work through, and I think it is something that is very well or very much needed in the community. And I think somebody needs to go to the high schools and start talking to these kids. Not everybody needs to go to college.
Yes.
Me, what I wanted to do required going to college. I wanted to be an engineer. But I knew that because my dad was an engineer, you know. In my personal life, fortunately, I showed my son different types of engineering, and he went a whole different route than me. I followed in the footsteps of my grandfather and my father. And now seeing what my son does, it's like, I wish somebody told me that 40 years ago. But it just seems like in the schools, either you go into the arts or you're in college prep. And if you're not in either one of those two, you know, they don't really sell the technical side of it. You know, I don't even know how much wood shop and metal shop classes they have anymore, because it seems like, I know when my son was in high school, I went to a board meeting to try and keep them going because they were cutting some programs. I don't know, you know, you got auto shop, all those, I think those are on the cutting block, and they're trying to steer kids towards college more than they should. And not everybody needs to take out $200,000 worth of loans to go to college for a job that may or may not be there. So if there's any.
Likely not.
Are you watching your time?
Yeah, I have to depart. I have to go get a shot in the eye, unfortunately.
Oh, boy.
Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I think we're getting close to the end here, but good luck, good luck. That's not fun.
No, well, it's only every 5 weeks. It just happened to be today. Because they
Yeah.
couldn't go over Thanksgiving because of Thanksgiving, so.
Good luck.
See ya.
We'll see. Yeah, I think that would be a great program and
Yeah.
help a kid get his master plumber's license.
Well,
Something like
to
that.
get them, like to get your master electricians,
Yeah.
I don't think we wouldn't have the opportunity for them to do that, because I had a journeyman electrician.
Mhm.
The type of work we do, he had to have 1,000 hours in a year of new installation,
Yeah.
and we don't do 1,000 hours of new installation in there.
Okay.
So even though he had 30 years as a journeyman,
Mhm.
he could not get the 1,000 hours per year requirement filled here. But we would at least give them the experience and the opportunity to see what is out there,
Mhm.
that, hey, you don't need to go and go broke going to college.
Yeah.
Mhm. And unfortunately, it even seems like the tech schools are not really helping with a lot of the things that industry and the county needs. I talked to Fox Valley Tech about getting, if they had courses for like what we do, and they said, basically, to quote the guy, and this is a couple of years ago, you're not the first one that's asked that. It's like Amcor, and we ask, and it's like, well, nobody wants to do it. So, I think we need to show these kids, what's out there. To be able to have a successful career.
Even if it's part-time, could you start the student as a part-time anyways, and then go from there? You
Yeah.
hire him without changing
Yeah,
anything.
That's what I was gonna say too. Just, we have part-time employees. That's what essentially that you are, going through all this monkey business of changing this table to that table to this table to that table. I mean, I think I may be wrong, but it's what you are, a part-time employee. So I think, hopefully there's a pathway here.
I think there's a pathway, and I think I can work with Mark and HR and come up with a way to do it. Because I really think the county executive would be behind this 100%. It's just trying to navigate the rules that we have, and some of them are self-imposed to get this done.
Well, I think the county board would be behind you if they had to change some around. It's this to get employees, because everybody's short of employees right now.
Right.
So I think it's a great idea.
It would help a lot of departments.
Yeah, Parkview. I mean, I can think of many departments that, when you're a kid, you need experience,
Yeah.
right? You need something on your resume. And if you're a senior and you might be 18, so you might be able to wipe that off, if the person, isn't 18 yet, but maybe I was 17 working for the school district. So I understand things change, but yeah, so I'm willing to help out anywhere I can, Mike.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Well, Mike, are you all good on your budget?
As good as I can be.
All right. Well, moving on to items for the next meeting agenda. I think we're going to want to talk about the building assessment. Tom, did you want to talk about that historical marker?
No, I don't want to talk about this.
Okay, me neither.
Get it put in and be done with it. The 980 should probably be on there again, see how you come out at the meetings with the city and that.
The elevator. And 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Yep. Sounds good. Anybody
The
else?
contract for the, right. Is that it?
For shelter care.
Yeah,
We can talk about shelter care. I will find out from Bill where we are on that. Marianne?
All right.
I don't know if you want to talk about the boat thing or
Yeah,
not.
I'll do the boathouse too. At least I can tell you what the soil samples came back at.
yeah.
And then, you know. Yeah,
Is he gonna be able to keep working on that? Through the winter or?
he'll be able to do more of the removals. I think he can do some of it. And then get going again in spring.
Be going up and pull up like he did on one of the roads.
Yeah. I don't think he will, because I think he likes working with the sheriff.
All right, we've got our agenda items. Next meeting date and time, I guess I will ask the group here. The fourth Wednesday is the 21st, but we also have the 28th open. I guess, does anybody have any conflicts on either of those dates or?
Yeah, I may, just check it.
Do we have anything that has to go on the board meeting, you think?
In December, yeah, the capital. I know they're working on the capital stuff,
Yeah.
and at the December meeting, I should be able to present what kind of capital projects I had asked for and got approved by the county executive.
But I mean, there wouldn't have to be anything as far as on the board, that if we met early is what I'm getting at,
No,
to stay away from holidays and that.
no. I would just probably recommend with the holidays. I think, you know, maybe if we go to the 21st, that would probably be the better day.
Yeah.
28th, I'm probably heading towards Florida.
All right, so everybody's good with 12/21 at 9 o'clock at the facilities building? Okay, with that, I would take a motion to adjourn.
Motion we adjourn.
Second? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned.
The picture behind you don't look like you're in very bad shape there. Jack.
Looks are deceiving, Tom.
Yeah.